What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 665 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. We are breaking down everything that is happening in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days, heading into WWE Bash in Berlin and NXT No Mercy for this weekend. We already did our predictions for both of those, so go check out the NXT No Mercy one first, the Bash in Berlin one from 2 days ago. And of course, we will be talking about things like the SmackDown spoilers for tonight. We'll be getting into, unfortunately, some Sycho Sid talk. We have some predictions for some other pay-per-views coming up too. TNA Emergence and New Japan's Capital Collision, both happening tonight, right?
Yep.
So this is a busy weekend. And if you don't know who we are by any chance, and you're brand new to this podcast, I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert DeFelice.
And I'm excited to talk about the hottest tag of all, which is that Oasis is getting back together, but I'll never see them, so I don't know why I'm so excited for this.
What's your favorite go-to Oasis song?
Oh, Morning Glory. What's Story Morning
Very
Glory?
good one.
It's probably my favorite song.
I mean, Wonderwall is the first one I always think of, but that's great. Champagne Supernova, great. Don't Look Back in Anger.
Don't Look Back in Anger, very good.
Some Might Say, it's a good one. I feel like I'm missing something else that I probably have in my collection.
Is a fantastic song.
Let me look and see what other ones I have in my Stop Crying Your Heart Out. It's the only other one that I have in my collection. But
as the Englishman, do you want to add to this?
I mean, obviously I know a lot of Oasis songs. It's not like it's a band that I've followed that much. So I don't really listen to music in general, so it doesn't really affect me.
How do you think Blur is going to respond?
If I don't care, first of all, about that. But if I was to pick an Oasis song that hasn't been mentioned already, then I'd probably go with Half the World Away as one of my favourites.
Very good.
So if you're an Oasis fan, if you're not, one way or another, leave your comments below. Tell us what you think about all these hot tags as we go along here, and make sure that you also hit the like button on this video, double check that you are subscribed, and also ring that notification bell to get those email alerts for those pay-per-view point post shows coming up this weekend too. You can always super chat stuff there. You can do the thanks button here to help us out on the monetary side of things. Click on that join button too, gets you access to the same stuff that you would on Patreon. But if you prefer Patreon, or if you want to do both, I mean, it's the same exact thing. I'm not going to stop you from doing that, but patreon.com/smarkoutmoment. You get access to the Darkcast tier, the Pick Your Poison tier. Even $1 a month is greatly appreciated. You know the score by now about all that stuff. And also TeePublic and Redbubble are where you can pick up your merchandise. And also keep in mind the Discord server is another way for you to chat it up. You got our Facebook groups, the Megamaniacs. We got all sorts of different methods for you to leave comments and stuff. But as you're listening to this podcast, if you are on YouTube, consider just, timestamping something and being like, here's my thought about that or something like that. I always try to cut back and read every comment that I possibly can, even if I don't necessarily respond to all of them. So we do have quite a bit of stuff to get into here today. And I think what I'm going to do to kind of make this a little bit easier for some people is I'm going to start off with the SmackDown spoilers. And then that way, if anybody doesn't want to know what's happening or whatever like that, then they can just kind of skip forward a little bit. Like, because it's really, there's not all that much that happened on here. And, that in of itself is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not like crazy stuff to talk about, so the rest of the discussion you won't have to worry about the spoilers. So on YouTube, I guess I'll put I'm not gonna put a different graphic on screen about this, but I don't know, maybe I'll flicker the hot tags thing with a fantasy league or something. I don't fucking know. But really quickly, the SmackDown spoilers for tonight are a dark match that you don't need to know, but Street Profits beat A-Town Down Under. The open challenge for the United States Championship was answered by Ludwig Kaiser, who failed.
I'd like to announce that I called that from the moment he said, I'm going to do an open challenge in Germany.
And apparently Ludwig Kaiser had said that if he were to win the title, he would change it over to the European Championship just to get a little bit extra heat going there. But he got cheered as expected. So I don't know how they're going to edit that later on. There are a lot of.
They edited it. He's the hometown boy.
I don't think they want to end this with LA Knight getting booed.
Well, it opened the show. I don't think they're ending anything.
No, I mean ending the segment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
There were some video packages, some stuff about like Gunther and Orton, Nia Jax, Legado del Fantasmas, Angel and Berto beat Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin. Solo Sikoa says that he wants another shot at the WWE Championship for whoever is champion following Bash in Berlin. Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens had a promo where Cody said that he has a knee injury from the live tour, but that he's okay. And Owens talked about how there are people that always say that he never won the Universal Championship for any reason other than Triple H giving it to him. Cody wants them to still be friends after he beats him in Bash in Berlin, and Kevin Owens doesn't respond to that. They teased the idea of a town undersplitting, but Austin Theory accepts Grayson Waller's apology. And then we have Giovanni Vinci is going to return next week. Carmelo Hayes beats Andrade, and Nia Jax retains the women's championship at a street fight over Michin. Tiffany Stratton teases the Money in the Bank cash-in, but doesn't do it. And Bayley returns and goes after Stratton. And there's your SmackDown. You don't have to watch it tonight.
I still do. Go fuck yourself.
So that's I'm going to there you go. The Linktree thing is up. I'll flash this back and forth. There you go. For anybody that did that, and if not, then you had your warning anyway. I don't think that there's any talking points to really come out of that. Do you guys?
No. My talking point, we look for Ludwig Kaiser to be on the rise. Not many people have the Undertaker's endorsement the way that Ludwig Kaiser does, so I imagine he's going to get a lot more shots.
What did he say about Kaiser?
Well, first he said that he really enjoys Kaiser's work as a heel, and then after SummerSlam, he said that he pulled him aside and they had a nice chat. So I'd expect a lot from Kaiser in the near future.
He's on a roll, you could say.
You could say that.
It's not as good as the Joe Hendry thing the other day, but yeah, let's move on to, actually, here's a topic that I don't think people are going to go super crazy over, so it's going to be a pretty fast one, but the WWE Speed Championship is going to have a women's equivalent to it, and the bracket is now up. So we do know one person who is in the semifinals now, but here's the setup behind it. I'm just going to give our opinions. Io Sky beats Lyra Valkyria, and the rest of them we don't know for the quarterfinals. Blair Davenport against Naomi, Elektra Lopez against Kairi Sane, and Candice LeRae against Piper Niven. So that is the full lineup of who is going to potentially be this Speed Women's Championship. The most important championship in WWE right now, for sure. And not exactly something that I am going to follow in any capacity. But when I look at this list of people, I kind of assume that Io Sky is going to be at least in the finals, if not win. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter too much. But I could see this being maybe Kairi against Io in the finals just for something kind of fun. But I think more so it's going to be Io against Piper. And that Io is going to come out on top.
I think Kairi versus Io could be the most fun 5-minute match ever put on by WWE. Honestly, this feels like you should just give it to Naomi. Give her something. It's on Twitter. Like it's like the Andrade equivalent. Like Andrade's technically a champion right now, but no, he doesn't come out with the belt because it's exclusive to Twitter. But yeah, I'd like to see Io versus Kairi.
I just picture it's going to be Blair beats Naomi, Elektra loses to Kairi, Candice loses to Piper. So then you got Io versus Blair, and then Kairi versus Piper.
Candice is another one, though, where you're just like...
they can give it to any of them. Like, it's
fucking
speed. Yeah.
Like, you know, like, if you want to have Candice wrestle for 5 minutes, that's awesome. Like...
3 minutes, right? Or is it 5 minutes?
Well, if she's in the championship match, it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate this the way that other people do. I'm just indifferent towards it, you know? But yeah, I'd like to see Io versus Kyrie or anybody versus Candice.
Where does the Speed Championship rank to you, Callum, compared to 24/7 title? Is it worse?
I mean, well, he paid attention to the 24/7 title, kind of.
It's like it's not on my radar, so it doesn't matter. I'd have to be watching it on Twitter, and I'm not gonna, not even for a 3-minute long match, I'm not gonna waste my time like watching a match on Twitter.
I honestly don't know a single person that has mentioned Speed a single time to me other than when they originally announced it and people went, "What's this thing?" Nobody watches this, but they're getting paid for it, I'm assuming, so.
You're wrong. See, it's perfect for this platform because the people who are watching are like oh my god, I am a,
Electra
Lyra
Lopez
Valkyria
stan.
Exactly, and they're gonna watch. So it's perfect.
Milk them for whatever little bit of revenue you can get out of that. I don't blame them, but it's, man, is that a championship that I don't follow in the slightest bit. So spoiler alert for the stupidest championship at the end of the year awards type of thing. I wonder what we're going to be talking about.
Well, you mentioned milking people for as little money as possible. You want to talk about the report about Swerve Strickland's AEW contract?
No, that's a good transition there. So WWE apparently mad at AEW for the amount of money that they spent to re-sign Swerve Strickland and potentially what they would have done with Daniel Garcia because of the price being like it's too high of a price point that's going to set the wrong terms for other people going forward. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, and we all had the same reaction of, well, that's capitalism. And if you are this like penny pinching, money grubbing type of company where you are like, well, we got to get rid of all these people and force them to do jobs like the way that, combine 3 jobs into one person and all this, like any of these companies are doing these days. Hey, what's been happening with something like McDonald's recently or Subway? Subway had those $5 footlongs for like, decades? And then they were like, yeah, can we charge like $15 for it? And people went, not if you want us to buy them. And then now they're like, can you guys go back to buying the $5 footlongs, but maybe at like $6, please? And people are like, no, I'm done with your shit now. And if you want to be the type of person, I don't want to get too political here, but my opinions about politics at this point in my life, especially over this past election, is very much, if you're against what I believe, this is very like dystopian, you're just a fucking idiot. And you might disagree on some opinion things, but some stuff is just like a fact. If you are very much like capitalism is, rah, rah, everything has to be all that stuff, and I'm going to bootlick and all, then you also have to be willing to take the hit as a company. And if paying Swerve Strickland a butt ton of money is what AEW wants to do, and WWE is mad about it, here are your options. Number 1, suck it up and pay people so they don't leave. Or number 2, they leave. The end. You're a business. You're a $1 billion corporation. You'll be fine.
Record profit all the time.
This whole stupid thing about companies needing perpetual growth needs to stop. And I am happy for Swerve. And if it happened to Daniel Garcia too, I'm happy for Daniel Garcia. Make money. Fuck companies.
Not only that, but Swerve worked himself into a position where he's earned that money. He can be looked at as like a pillar guy for this company. And yeah, I have no doubts that at one point WWE did have ideas for him, but not to the level of what AEW is doing. And I think it's phenomenal that he's getting that money. And I would just like to say I believe the overall negativity from WWE is that they don't want to pay anybody money. Not just because it's like, I saw some takes that's like, it's because they don't want to see a successful black guy. No, I just don't think they want to pay anybody money.
Yeah.
You know, I think they want to pay everybody as little money as possible.
Like every kind of company out there these days.
Right. Like, and good for Swerve. Swerve is doing phenomenal work in AEW right now. I believe he and Hangman have the potential to have one of the best matches of the year next Saturday or Sunday. And I am just looking forward to seeing this go down.
Yeah, I mean, echo most of the sentiments there. It's great for Swerve to earn some money. I kind of think that the people that put their bodies and lives on the line every time they step inside the ring should probably be the people being paid the most in pro wrestling, but maybe that's be me.
The people that people watch the TV shows for.
Yeah. I don't think it is any sort of like race angle or anything like that, but you know, Triple H, with Triple H, there is kind of like, it's now becoming like where there's a smoke incident, so want to just keep an eye on that side of things. But I think that for the most part, it's just a case of they want to build the narrative that instead of, you know, they weren't able to sign a guy like Daniel Garcia, and Daniel Garcia decided to stay with AEW, and they weren't able to like pry Swerve Strickland back because we're still like 2 years removed from Triple H apparently calling people up and trying to get them to rejoin WWE that have just left for AEW on the back of Vince leaving the first time. So like, the fact that they aren't able to compete that, or don't feel like they should be competing with that, they've tried to twist this story into, oh, Tony Khan is wasting money on people, he's paying way over the odds on wrestlers, where it's like, no, they're the people doing all the work. You're just sitting there trying to reap all the profits off the back of it. And you've got way more, as a company, you've got way more resources. But this is, well, first of all, this is what WWE have tried to do, because they've had, for the longest time before AEW came around, they were the only big player in the industry, which means that essentially if you wanted to make a shit ton of money doing that job, you would have to go to WWE. And so they could always lowball you. And then they're now paired up with the UFC, who is famous for underpaying its fighters and trying to squeeze every single penny out of them, and they do something that's even more dangerous than pro wrestling. So I think that they'll need to shift tactics eventually, because this sort of, once it becomes apparent how much the top stars in AEW are getting paid, and whether and at the moment WWE seem to be taking the route of trying to downplay that as a bad thing, rather than, you know, using that as motivation to put even more zeros on their own wrestlers' paychecks. I think that it might start to rile some people. The way it may start casting some eyes over, if I thought AEW I could earn this much. At the very least, to be a good negotiating tactic. I'm tired of like it all being coming down to whether you've got the right work ethic to be in WWE, or that but you want to wrestle at WrestleMania, right? Everyone wants to wrestle at WrestleMania at least once. Like, that's fine, but you know, I'm sure a lot of people do want to do that. But it's a case of, yeah, but if you want me to do that, then pay me this amount instead. I don't think that has the same cachet that it used to.
I will say that there's precedent for it getting out of control, where like if you look at, you know, WCW, it's like, we're paying the Nasty Boys how much? You know, like, yeah, there's precedent.
But then let them do that, because then they go out of business, and then it resets itself anyway. Like, if that's going to be the thing that ruins AEW, then WWE should be like, cool, we don't want to pay that much money for, like, realistically, we don't know how much they're paying them to. Like, at a certain point, it does become very ridiculous. Like, I can't imagine justifying spending, say, $2 million a year on Swerve. But it's not my money. So if you are running a business and that's how you want to spend your money, then that's what you choose to do. And I wouldn't be like, okay, well, if, I don't know, say, what would the average be on like an NXT contract? I think it's something like 50 grand. Last time
It's
that I remember.
It's quite low for the newest signings, yeah.
So, like, let's just say it's 50 grand for, like, a normal NXT talent, like a Channing Stacks Lorenzo or something like that. If that's the case, and you look at somebody like an Action Andretti in AEW, and if Tony Khan is like, oh, I'm going to give him $250,000,
well, fuck,
then you'd be stupid not to go to that company, first off, if you're that employee. And then eventually AEW will run out of money. Like, they can't do that, especially since he was like, you can't pay everybody $100,000. But Swerve was just their champion, and clearly they value him in a higher way than WWE does. So if WWE was like, hey, buddy, you want to come back here? We'll give you 20 grand. And then Tony Khan's like, I'll give you 400,000 a year. Then maybe the issue is WWE and not, paying the money on all that.
You think?
So it's like, I hate the stupid way that business is being done these days, and I blame a lot of things for it. I blame, the stock market thing we were just talking about. I blame COVID as well for being like, for some reason, people took the wrong idea out of this. It was like, well, we need essential workers, people that can like go out there and keep people from dying and stuff. And then corporations were like, hey, can we just go full-blown dystopian? Like, so I'm all for any kind of company getting a reality check and then having to take a monetary hit for being greedy. Greed is the one thing that we need to get rid of in this world more than anything else. And it's a shame that COVID didn't just target those people. But the Swerve contract, whatever he's for, it's good for him.
He's earned every penny.
Speaking of like weird, greedy ideas and moving things around and contracts and all that stuff, let's talk about this topic that was now debunked, ? Which earlier this week was a huge topic and has since kind of become like multiple different, like, well, maybe this is what that's actually happened. Maybe this is what actually they meant by that. Originally, what this came out for was a report from WrestleVotes saying that there was an all hands on deck type of meeting. And I believe it's Mark Shapiro had said that the WWE Performance Center was going to be moving from Orlando, Florida, to Las Vegas. And since then, there's been conflicting reports that, number one, no, that wasn't said, or it was said, but it's not happening immediately, or it was mentioned, but it was only mentioned as a possibility, or that it was mentioned as a possibility to have a second one built over there and to keep the Orlando one as the primary performance center, or none of this makes any sense whatsoever. And where is this report coming from? For all we know, there wasn't even a meeting. So my gut reaction at first was, this is stupid for multiple reasons. And then eventually when it came out that, there's all these other variations of the story, then it became, all right, well, we're not going to know what's happening until we get some kind of notification. But I don't trust the suits talking about a lot of things in any capacity, whether it's pro or con. Look at what's happened with NXT Europe, for instance. I think that was not a plan to begin with. And they talked it up, and then, kind of disappeared. But if they were to move, I think it would be a massive mistake. Number one, why would you move further away from your Stanford headquarters? I know that a lot of people go straight to, well, UFC has the whole Las Vegas presence, so they would want to merge that. They just spent all these millions of dollars on the Stanford thing. And think about how much more difficult it is for somebody to do something at the Performance Center in Vegas and do something at Stanford. If you wanted people to go back and forth between then, that's a whole cross-country trip. That's not a 3-hour flight like it is from Stanford to I'm pretty sure that it's like, when I mean, New York's a little bit different, of course. It's not like that much of a difference, but New York to Florida is like, I think, maybe like an hour or something flight.
New York to Florida?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 3 hours.
That's 3 hours?
Yeah.
See, I thought that when we went to Fort Lauderdale the last time that it was like, the flight itself was like an hour.
Well, I'll say this. Every time I've had to do JFK to Tampa, 3 hours.
Well, even so, 3 hours, you add a little bit more time for Connecticut. That's a massive difference to go out to Las Vegas. And then you're asking everybody to move because all these people live in Florida for NXT. They're not living there just for the sake of it. They're living there because that's where the Performance Center is. So you would be telling all the staff, all the superstars, all the trainers to be like, pack up your bags and move, which would be a huge undertaking. And there would be, I'm sure, a lot of people that would be like, you know what, I quit. That's too much. It's like, you're asking all my family to move. You're asking this, you're asking that. And then for what? Like, what would really be the benefit for them being in Las Vegas if that were to be the case? Now, a second Performance Center in there, if they have the money to do that, which they could spend on the contracts, by the way, if they were to do that, then maybe that's useful because then they can do some shows out there like the UFC Apex thing, and they can, like, if they would decide to do some tour stuff, that they can use that as like a hub, or for all we know, maybe they can boost up their staff and have a second Performance Center like in full where they have trainers out on that coast and people that are living on that side of the country to be like, okay, well, you stay here and then you only fly out to do something, whatever. But I'm glad to see that at least hasn't been confirmed. And I hope that they don't switch it over to there anytime soon. What do you guys feel about this?
So, the report from Sean, which is the follow-up from WrestleLoad, says that there was a meeting. Shapiro said that, Las Vegas is a great sports center, and having a WWE presence would be a big deal. But that, people within WWE were like, we've heard nothing about moving the Performance Center. I am of the belief that if anything was to ever happen, it would probably be a second thing. Just because, and not only that, but just because Shawn Michaels was featured in a TKO video like hours later saying WWE NXT Performance Center Orlando. Like he said the whole thing and then he said Orlando as if there's like another one on the way or something like that. But ultimately, like, yeah, I think it'd be stupid to leave Orlando. They have a nice base there, and just because UFC has the Apex doesn't mean they all have to move and make their new home in Vegas.
I think that there is I don't think it's going to happen in any sort of like immediacy, but I think there is a good chance that they'll end up in Las Vegas eventually. It just makes sense in terms of a synergistic thing to bring the UFC and WWE side of things together. So I think it's something that probably I would probably wager would happen in the next 2 to 3 years.
That's also the other thing. Is like, no, these things don't happen overnight, and why would anyone expect that?
The big issues with it would be like logistically, because essentially so many people who are at the Performance Center are also based and living in Florida and living in and around the Performance area. So I think that you would have to, if you were to ever transfer over into Las Vegas, then you'd actually, well, if you were a caring, considerate company, you'd rehouse all those people and find places for all of them to live in Las Vegas instead. Or in and around the Las Vegas. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't care about that. They would make sure people, they tell people, oh, you have to find your own way over here, one way or the other. But I think that, yeah, as I say, it seems like he was a little bit premature, but based on the fact that they have done that NXT show in the UFC arena and the fact that there are they've already done things in the company in terms of streamlining the amount of people that work there based on like people covering both sides of, you know, marketing and other roles for both C and WWE. It would make sense that if they would eventually bring all those things together into one area as another cost-cutting measure.
I would think it would be, I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't have a business degree or something like that, but I would think it would be more beneficial to just keep the things that they have and to be able to be like shared in a sense. Like they were able to go to the UFC Apex and have that show there. And if they need to use the offices or they need to use the gyms there, or I don't know what that kind of facility is like, that they could be like, okay, well, you know, let's send the WWE people over there and they can use that in the meantime. And then when the UFC people are over on the East Coast, that they can hop on over to Stamford headquarters, or they can head on over to the Performance Center and like kind of utilize that. So you have like a hub on the East and the West Coast. I mean, that would make sense. Kind of the way that most businesses are. Like, you know, Google, like I walk by a Google thing every once in a while right here in New York, and there's Twitch has like a thing not that far away from my place and stuff. So it's like, I'm sure they've got places in LA or, you know, Burbank, wherever the hell it might be. You kind of need both. And I mean, ignoring all the moving aspects of it, that alone would be a reason for me to be like, well, why would you pack up and shift? But you factor into there all the people that would have to move to when you foster a culture the way that they do in there. I can't imagine that would go over well whatsoever. And at least one report was talking about like panic setting in from people that had like heard that this was a thing. And then I guess we're all just kind of, you know, hopping on their group chat messages and stuff. But if we hear anything like that in the future, I think that that's going to be a massive reason for people to not want to join NXT and to be like, okay, you're really just like messing things up going forward. And that's across the board for like, you know, the trainers too. Like if you are used to this being the headquarters, then you just get told, well, you got to move to the other side of the country. I'm sure there's plenty of people that aren't going to want to do that. So that's something to keep an eye on for the future. If we do hear more about it, we'll talk about that again for another hot tag.
By the way, it's sad how many workers find stuff out in the same way that we do, and then they have to go through things like potential panic.
Yeah, it's really stupid for a company that has this many employees and this much revenue and all these resources that could be applied in ways that are much more efficient for people to get released and find out on Twitter, or for people to have to go to like a Fightful or any wrestling news or something to find out stories and all.
That's like so sad to me.
Absolutely ridiculous. But then again, that's what companies are like these days. So, speaking of ruthless company things and all that, let's talk about this Netflix documentary that is going to be coming out on September 25th, so right around the corner. Mr. McMahon is a Netflix documentary that's going to be about Vince McMahon. He's got the whole puppeteer thing. He's on a boxing ring that I complained about on Twitter, which for some reason people were like,
yeah, that really upset somebody.
Some fucking Yahoo jerk off was like, you know, like, the world's not ending, fuck you, or something. I don't know. Like, yeah, he can go to hell. But
but it's funny because I had those same impulses and I have to stop myself. Because like when they did the Call of Duty crossover, they used a boxing ring image, and I was just like, ugh. You know, and you just have to like let it go. Just don't worry about it.
Now Callum got me. It's not that it's every company doesn't use those. WWE.
Yes, because New Japan and Stardom use those long turnbuckle pads. So it's a WWE. Well, it's a WWE thing. AEW obviously do as well. It's a Western.
It's a
Western wrestling thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I am excited for this documentary. It's not a WWE produced documentary, so there is more of a chance that they will actually talk about stuff that WWE would not want them to talk about. But I think that they, if I remember correctly, have not interviewed Janelle Grant for
They
this.
haven't interviewed Janelle or anybody representing Janelle Grant. Now,
So that,
we do
that's the thing that people would most want to be tuning into right now, and we're not going to get it, but we
do
are
have to
sure
remember
to get.
this was well underway when all of it broke the first time.
Because Vince is heavily featured in it with interviews that took place before all this stuff happened. I mean, the Janelle Grant thing, obviously people would want to hear that, but fundamentally, this is an ongoing lawsuit. She wouldn't be able to say certain things or nothing and there's no point in repeating anything that's happened in the lawsuit anyway, because it just opens you up to certain like liabilities or anything like that. So I think it's the right decision that she's not involved in it, because fundamentally at the back end of it, you'll have enough interviews with journalists and people that are involved in it who have been tracking this story for a while that can help facilitate all the background stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's first of all, this isn't like Netflix is trying to pounce on something. Like, they're doing a big wrestling push in September. There's the Dump Matsumoto series, which I'm very excited for, by the way. There's Heels is coming to Netflix, both seasons. And now there's this McMahon documentary. They're going all in on wrestling because they want to get you ready for Raw being in January. And I'm excited for all that. I'm excited for this documentary. I was like one of the only people during the initial COVID outbreak that did not watch Tiger King. So I don't know how good this documentary style will be, but I'm still excited to see what they come up with. Because even with all of this not included, the story of Vince is still a fucking crazy one, and I want to see how much of it they get into.
I was late to the party on Tiger King, but I ended up enjoying it quite a bit, so that's another benefit to it. And yeah, like the Vince McMahon story is interesting in and of itself. It's just kind of funny to me that one of their things for prepping people for that is to be like, look at this disgusting scumbag. You want to watch this show? It's coming up on Monday Night Raw.
Well, no, but that's like this is your chance to
get it out of the way beforehand.
Drum. This is not his company. This is Ari Emanuel's company. This is Nick Khan's company. This is not his company anymore.
Maybe it ends with like, and then the world was saved, and he did a poochie and went back to his home planet, and
then he died.
But I thought it'd be funny, like the way that the world is, like the fact that they will put out this documentary, it's going to incentivize people to watch WWE more than anything else, even if they don't even clarify that he's no longer in charge of the company, he's been kicked out in disgrace and all that stuff. People go like, oh, this guy's crazy and he's weird. I'm going to watch his show.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's the group of sickos that like saw
AEW fans.
Saw the Dahmer stuff and we're like, he was kind of hot. It's like these documentary series do get people all riled up, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, the Manson followers and all, like, people are sick, and they all should disappear.
Do you want to rephrase that in any way?
No.
Okay.
Unless I can think of something harsher. Yeah, so don't come at me at Twitter, you jackasses. I'm not in the fucking mood in 2024. But I'm excited to see this documentary. I have like too many goddamn shows to watch, and here's a quick rundown, a little I'll put up the Fanboys Anonymous thing for this. Check out fanboysanonymous.com, everybody. I have not watched the second and third parts of that 90s show yet. I have not started to tune in to Terminator Zero. Not an anime fan, but it's fucking Terminator, so of course I'm going to have to watch this. That's what happens when
What's that on?
That's on Netflix, I believe.
Okay.
I've got the amount of, like, I still have to finish Caped Crusader. I still have to finish Kite Man. Although technically I can't finish Kite Man because I lost access to the pre-screen things.
Oh, you little crybaby. Watch Kite Man. I will give you my login, you fucker.
No, I mean, they're releasing them like one episode at a time. I had all 10 episodes, and then I didn't finish it. And then...
Well, whose fault is that, sir?
That's the world's fault. I've got... what other shows do I still have? I still have Futurama I gotta watch. I got Sunny. Not It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's Sunny that I gotta watch. I got Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that I haven't seen yet.
Is that on? Is that going?
I have that all on Plex if you want to check that out. I still gotta finish my adventures with Superman. I started to watch Mayfair Witches, and that I haven't finished. Oh man, there's so many different things. So
I'm behind on my adventures with Superman as well. I haven't started watching the anime Suicide Squad thing.
I did watch
Cape Crusader. I watched Cape Crusader one shot. I was very up and down on it. I do think you should just sit down and watch it. Kite Man
had some good stuff going for it.
It had some good stuff, but I think they go too far with a certain storyline, and it kind of took me out of it a little.
Which story?
The mother. Glider's mother. Like, it almost becomes too removed from the DC universe, and it's just like, it's a little too much for me.
Yeah. So, if you want more talk about that stuff, fanboysanonymous.com. Also, check out, by the way, the article I talked about of who would be the anchor being in WWE for, if you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, anchor beings are a thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So check that out. They converted that over to a video on What Culture, where they changed some of the stuff that I had said, but, kept the overall idea. But, if you like those Marvel, DC, WWE type of crossover things, then, not only check that out, but also check out that thing we did before about Survivor Series. Also, just another, I'm going to put the Fanboys Anonymous thing back up on here. An idea I've been sitting on for a long time, and I feel like it would be a fun one to do in podcast form, but I haven't figured out a way to do it. Plus timing has been another thing. I totally want to do, if character X were a Pokemon, what type would they be? And then what would their team be if they were a Pokemon trainer? I have notes about a lot of this kind of stuff, but I want to have like some podcast at some point this year or whatever, where we talk about some of this stuff and get Rob's and Callum's opinions. Definitely donate to the Patreon if you want to see that, everybody, because I've got notes for Godzilla. I've got notes for what Pokemon type Forrest Gump would be. Like, I fucking went down the rabbit hole one day and started to do that. So
would he just be Psyduck?
No, I did not give him the water and psychic type. But it's a funny discussion that I want to have at some point. So if you want more of that kind of stuff, let me know. Especially sponsored on the Pick Poison tier. And when it comes down to the Mr. McMahon documentary on September 25th, I'm hopefully going to binge that around that time frame. So we'll get to talk about that on like the hot tags, or maybe it's like a dark cast or something along those lines. So stay tuned for that too. This is not a good transition, but let's talk about Nikki Bella, her husband, Artem Chigvintsev.
Artem piece of shit. Go ahead.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. Dancing with the Stars guy was arrested for domestic violence charges, and now it seems at least one report says that some shoes were thrown as a part of this. And I don't understand even why they necessarily do this stuff, but it was like, we can't say who called, and we can't say the person that had been afflicted by this. It's like, but it's a domestic abuse thing. It's
given
Bella, most likely. So
given the description of domestic
Bella throwing shoes
in the state of California, it was probably Nikki Bella, because it has to be either a spouse or a mother of your child, or
right.
It's spelled out there.
Yeah, I guess technically they probably can't for some kind of legal reasons, but like that sucks. And hopefully that's a matter that is not as bad as it could be, and that things get resolved soon and all, because nobody deserves to be in any kind of an abusive relationship whatsoever. But I saw a lot of people reacting about, like, you know, the different timeline theories that we always talk about of, like, you know, well, this wouldn't happen if she would have been married with John Cena type of a thing. And, like, you know, but I don't know anything about this dude, but the sheer fact of this being a story is like, yeah, fuck him. You know, you don't do that to somebody that you love. You don't do that to anybody, period. But especially not to somebody you love. So hopefully she gets out of that.
I mean,
send Brian. Brian can beat his fucking ass.
I did text that to a couple of people. Oh, he could probably take care of it. But, like, honestly, it's very sad, just all around. And hopefully both Nikki and her son are okay and they're safe. And I hope that they are away from this situation as soon as possible. Domestic violence is a slippery slope, and I think it's always best to err on the side of caution and breaking away, regardless of how quote-unquote minor a first incident can be. I think you should always err on the side of caution, and it's terrible. And like Tony said, you don't do that to someone you love or anyone, but especially someone you love, and fuck them.
Yeah, as there's not very much else to be added on to that. Hopefully the situation is resolved to the best course of action for Nikki and her son. Yeah, as I just see, hopefully it just goes as the course should go.
And Rob brought up a good point about the idea of, like, not minimizing that stuff. Everybody in an abusive situation, no matter what the situation is, should take stock of the idea that one incident is not necessarily an isolated thing, and that you should seek help and get out of that in whatever way you can. So keep in mind, anybody that's listening to this too, you know, there are lots of different resources that you could go out there and seek help if you are in that type of a situation. So do so before it is too late, and hopefully Nikki Bella does. Let's switch over to predictions for some pay-per-view type stuff. Let's get into New Japan's Capital Collision that is happening. What time does it start, actually?
6:30.
So 2 hours from now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, 2 hours from when we're recording, at least. Running down the card very quickly. Interrupt me if you've got something to say about it, because I don't even know half these names.
I just decided to look at the card myself, because I realized I'll be covering this.
There is a strong survivor match between Matt Vandegrift and Alan Breeze. I don't think I've uttered those phrases before in my life.
I've seen Matt Vandegrift the last couple of times I had to watch New Japan shows. I'm assuming he'll win, and I've never seen Alan Breeze, so let's see what he's got.
Yeah, people interested. The strong survivor gimmick is essentially, it's not a title, but it's kind of a moniker that's given to the person that's, like, because this is a pre-show, so it's the first match on the show, and they've kind of established, like, that's going to be whoever wins that match is the current strong survivor, and they get the kind of duty of being the opening act of each show moving forward. So Matt Vandegrift is the current strong survivor, and so he's now putting that on the line against Alan Breeze. But he'll probably win.
There is a tag team match between Trish Adora and Viva Van against Empress Nexus Venus, Mina Shirakawa, and Hanako.
Hanako, yeah.
Hanako? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. So Empress Nexus Venus is one of the factions in Stardom. It's obviously Mina Shirakawa and Hanako. It's also got Micah, who's the current World of Stardom champion, and people like Wakasukiyama as well. So I think that essentially Mina Shirakawa is super over in the US.
Yep.
So I think that there's a very good chance that they just win this one. But there is routes they can take, because Mina at Rev Pro this past weekend won the British Heavyweight Championship, British Women's Championship, should I say? So if she was to get pinned, then you can immediately have a challenge yourself for her to face. But I imagine that they'll just go with Mina and Hado winning, just to get that pop at the before the main show starts.
I agree. I think Mina is really coming into her own and globally, and they're going to use that as a way to catapult her to probably an eventual match with Mercedes.
Moving on from there, you got a 3-way tag team match to determine the number one contenders for the strong openweight tag team titles. TMDK's Bad Dude Tito, one of my favorite names, and Robbie Eagles against the Grizzled Young Veterans, who will be popping up on Rampage, and Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tomohiro Ishii. So, I mean, I don't know my predictions for almost any of these things, but Grizzled Young Veterans are getting some attention. Maybe they win.
I'm going to go with Grizzled Young Veterans as well. I think they're more likely to stick around in the AEW New Japan Strong realm. So I'm going to say that they win here. Who are the current strong open weight?
TMDK.
TMDK. All right, so we can just rule out TMDK. And I mean, if Tanahashi wants to have a match where Ishii does most of the work because he's got no knees, they could go with Tanahashi, but I'm going to go Grizzly Young Vets.
I think it also depends on how committed Grizzly Young Vets are to AEW and how much that limits their outside work. But there's not many like New Japan strong shows that take place in the US. It's usually like every 2 to 3 months. So I don't think it would be too much of an issue if they took on TMDK in a couple of months' time. So yeah, I'd say they would probably win over TNDK Mark II and No Neck, No Knees, which is one name for Tomohiro Ishii and Hiroshi Tanahashi.
There's a 6-man tag team match: Kevin Knight, Rocky Romero, and Yoshihashi against Bullet Club War Dogs, David Finlay, Clark Conyers, and Drilla Maloney. Makes sense.
Bullet Club. Yeah, Bullet Club.
I could see. I mean, Bullet Club probably would win in most circumstances, but I could definitely see like either Kevin Knight or Rocky Romero getting a pin on one of Drew Maloney and Clark Connors, and that sets up a junior heavyweight tag team title match. So that feels like a well-travelled route for them to take. So yeah, I'll go with the babyfaces winning.
Past that, there's another tag team match. A lot of tag team matches going on here. Dirty Work, Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler against West Coast Wrecking Crew, Jorel Nelson and Royce Isaacs. I guess I would go the names that I would recognize with Dirty Work, which is funny. Dirty Work against Wrecking Crew. They're just going to have the construction clash or something.
This is kind of the implosion of Team Filthy because Lawler had been with Nelson and Isaacs previously as part of a faction. After feuding with Rosser, they've kind of formed a nice little team. This is a toss-up because West Coast Wrecking Crew is a really strong team for this brand, but also Rosser and Lawler are very popular. I'm gonna go Dirty Work, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would say Dirty Work could win. I'm surprised that this isn't the match for the number one contendership, really. That they've just thrown kind of 3 more random things together to fight for that, whereas this one is just going to be a grudge match. But yeah, I mean, I actually think that I'm going to go with West Coast Wrecking Crew wins because they'll probably set up some kind of hardcore match for the next show.
You ever seen the movie Dirty Work?
I have not.
Never heard of it, so.
That makes 3 of us. I've heard great things about it. Never watched it. That's another thing I gotta watch. God damn it. There's not enough time for every other thing. Moving on from that, Zack Sabre Jr., one of the main people hovering around on the New Japan scene right now, against Teton.
You said that right, Ton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Zack Sabre Jr. is winning. He just won the G1.
Yeah, it'd be really stupid if he lost this.
Yeah, it's Zack Sabre Jr., the G1 winner, against probably one of the lowest rungs on the totem pole in LIJ. So yeah, Zack Sabre Jr. is going to win.
Imagine if he did, though. And they're just sort of like, yeah, fuck it. and immediately just cast that out like that. That'd be so ridiculous. Tetsuya Naito against TJP. I'm assuming Naito wins that.
Yep, he's the world champion. He's going to win that match.
Yep.
That's just probably a slight build-up thing because Tetsuya Naito's next title defense is against the Great Okan, who's in the same faction as TJP. So it's just a little prelude to that.
I will say though, the TJP lock, if we're to for 5 seconds pretend like wrestling is real, TJP lock does work on the legs, and Naito also has no knees. So, good luck.
TMDK, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes are defending the strong openweight tag team titles against Hechicero and Virus, or did they go like Virus or something?
Virus.
I figured it might be. I'm assuming that TMDK retains.
Yeah, I like Hechicero, and I think he should get a strong showing. But yeah, TMDK will win here. And for some reason, looking at them, even though they haven't been this in like 10 years, I wanted to call them TM61.
Yeah, TNDK will retain the titles, but it's good to see Hechicero getting a lot of work around, just going from AEW to New Japan to Rev Pro to, well, obviously CMLL because that's where he's based. But yeah, it's good to see him just like cycle around these places.
One of the best luchadors in the world right now.
Yeah, Hiromu Takahashi against Mustafa Ali in a singles match where if Takahashi loses, he must publicly say that Ali is the best junior heavyweight wrestler in the world.
Ali is also 1-0 in their feud, so I'm going to guess Takahashi wins and evens the score.
Yeah, Hiromu will get the victory, and so he doesn't have to say that. And now Ali's no longer on his like massively long unbeaten streak since getting back on the Indies after he lost the X Division title to
Mike Bailey.
Yeah, Mike Bailey. So it means that he's open to lose this match now.
Totally have zero investment in that storyline on my front. So
They'll
sure.
flip if you like. Do you like flipping?
Yeah, flipping's good sometimes. Wouldn't say I would necessarily flip over it, but
Thank you.
Leo Rush against Gabe Kidd for the strong openweight championship. Oh, let's go
Happy
Gabe
to see
Kidd.
Leo Rush getting work, but Gabe Kidd's gonna win.
Oh yeah, Gabe Kidd will obviously retain the title, but it should be a fun match between those two.
And then we have the, I'm assuming, main event. The Strong Women's Championship. Mercedes Moné is defending against Momo Watanabe. I don't know.
It'll be Mercedes will retain.
Really? You don't know?
I don't know if Watanabe's been set up to be, let's just go ahead and put her in there.
She's kind of a, like, second, third in command in the new Hate stable in Stardom. So yeah, I don't think it's kind of like her story at the moment, realistically in Stardom. Again, I'm not watching week to week or show to show, but try and keep up to a degree. Kind of her story has been told that, like, she is... I mean, her whole gimmick for the last few years has been someone who doesn't really care about anything other than inflicting pain on people, but now she's gone to championships, but she's lost pretty much every opportunity title she's had in the last year or so. And so I think that they're trying to move to the point where she'll eventually break out and return back to her more babyface roots gimmick before joining that stable. And in order to continue that narrative, Mercedes has to win because it's another dent to her confidence and her story. So, and also, Mercedes just won the Strong Women's title. She's not going to drop it on her first defense.
So that's a non-WWE, non-AEW pay-per-view, but we have another one of them coming up this evening.
Today.
TNA Emergence 2024. Starting off with Kushida against Frankie Kazarian on the pre-show.
Kushida should win.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
I guess this one's all me. Hold on.
For the most part.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the storylines are.
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea what they're doing.
So these two were in a qualifying triple threat along with Alex Hammerstone for the upcoming X Division Ultimate X match, and they both lost. Kazarian got mad, beat up Kushida. I think Kushida just gets his lick back, but we'll see.
So PCO is going to defend both the Digital Media Championship and that Canadian International Heavyweight title against, Wikipedia has TBA with Matt Cardona. What's the storyline there?
The storyline there is it was supposed to be Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona on last night's Impact said he's not cleared still, even though he just wrestled at GCW. And he's promising a mystery monster to take his place against PCO. I have no clue who the Cardona could be bringing in. I feel like any real monsters aren't associated on the indies. Maybe I'm not thinking too much, but like maybe there could be maybe they get a one-shot deal for a Lance Archer. Maybe they get a one-shot deal for Ezekiel Jackson, for all the fuck I know.
That's a choice.
You know, like, it could be anybody. I hope it's good. But mostly just sad that Cardona is still injured because he's still having the run of his career.
It's going to be Tyrus, isn't it?
Oh God. I'm not even watching it, and I still hope not.
Wait, no, he can't. No, like.
Well, I think it's one of two things. It's going to be someone who's like a big person on the indies that most people, I don't say like most people will know of. It'll be someone in the latter stage of their career, like Kevin Murdoch immediately came to mind as well. And I'm just thinking about people in the NWA that like.
Kevin Murdoch ain't really a monster though, is he?
Well, he's a big dude.
The wide dude? I don't know if he's a big dude.
Wide enough, but like, or it's just or
wide's enough.
Yeah, wide's enough to be big.
Yeah, it just struck me funny. It's like, yeah, is he really a monster? Oh, you're wide enough to be a monster.
But it's either that, or there's going to be, or it's just going to be some like guy in a suit, or not in a suit, but like in a robe or something like that, and it's pretending that they're going to be the person fighting PCO, and then Matt Cardona is just going to hit him from behind and prove that he's actually like tricked him to do it, and then Matt Cardona will win the titles.
There's a chance that so the whole
it could be Steph DeLander.
It could be Steph DeLander. The whole backstory here is that Steph DeLander and PCO got married on TNA TV, and Cardona's kind of just been like, "What are you doing?" And I'm gonna beat this guy up and take his titles. And she's been, siding with her quote unquote husband. Could be Steph DeLander. You know who'd be sick? Sawyer Wreck. I know she just got cleared. Like, she's kind of like a hardcore wrestler on the indies. That'd be fun. I'm looking at the GCW roster because, who else could it be? Maybe it's fucking Jimmy Lloyd. I mean, he's doing the Broski Jimmy gimmick on the indies. Maybe it's Jimmy Lloyd. Tony, how would you feel if it was Jimmy Lloyd?
Good for Jimmy. Isn't PCO like old enough to be Steph DeLander's grandfather at this point? Probably. I don't
know about grandfather, but at least father.
What do we have for the Ultimate X match? We've got Mike Bailey against Zachary Wentz, against Riley Osborne from NXT.
Hell yeah.
Against Hammerstone, against Laredo Kid, and Jason Hotch. I don't think I've ever heard the name Jason Hotch before. And we talked about this before with the NXT No Mercy thing. It'd be interesting if Zachary Wentz were to win this championship, and then that would be defended at the pay-per-view, but it's most likely not going to happen. You would assume that Wesley's probably going to screw Zach Wentz over here. And then at that point, it's kind of up in the air for the rest of the people. I would assume Mike Bailey probably retains, but I don't know. Maybe they give it to Hammerstone or someone.
I would love for Wentz to win it here, and then the TNA X Division title gets defended at No Mercy. I think it's more likely that he's about to win it, and Wesley comes and costs him, and then someone else will win. I think Hammerstone should win, but I'm going to say Bailey will win.
Yeah, I'd say Bailey retains. Don't really know what way it will come about, but I think Bailey retain the Ultimate X thing, and then maybe go into something more permanent with Hammerstone instead.
Sounds like that would make sense. Like Hammerstone can lose this without losing, kind of a deal. You got Steve Macklin against Eric Young. Sure.
Yeah, this is the toss-up as far as I'm concerned. I'm gonna guess Eric Young because he's definitely gonna be around for however long TNA is around.
Fine.
I'll go Macklin. What the hell?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
go, Ron. You say it's a toss-up. I'd say it's toss-off.
There's a 6 knockout tag team match. Jordan Grace, Danny Luna, and Jody Threat versus Ash by Elegance, Alicia Edwards, and Masha Slamovich.
Well,
so the title's not on the line. Okay.
Grace has beaten Ash twice because the title was on the line last night in a match by Elegance, which was just basically, imagine if you will, Tony, a WWE trick or street fight, but instead of everything being Halloween themed, it's just, Ash by Elegance themed. So it was like pink steel chairs, and instead of thumbtacks, it was like, diamonds or whatever. But it was a fun match. But I'm saying the title was defended last night. I'm gonna guess the heels have to win here in order to, keep some steam on them.
I think they'll just have the baby faces win because I think they've just firmly established that Jordan Grace is better than Ash by Elegance, and the Militia are the women's tag champions, or knockouts tag champions, aren't they? So they probably need to have opponents next up, and it's probably more important they have opponents rather than like trying to set up a third match for Ash by Elegance to try and win the title.
When does Grace's contract end?
January.
Man, that can't come soon enough.
No, it can't.
So she's probably going to hold it at least until Bound for Glory, so they need to have someone lined up for her to actually...
Jada Parker or someone else from NXT, I'm sure.
Why don't TNA have any women that are worthwhile to beat her? Also, and then by proxy, why don't NXT have any women that are good enough to be facing Roxanne Perez outside of Julia and Stephanie Vicaire that they've just signed? Obviously
that's a great question. I have the same question, but Jordan has literally cleared almost every woman on this roster. I thought they were going to give it to Ash by Elegance because she's beaten everybody. So it does feel like they're going to have to bring in somebody or have her lose it in a multi-woman where she doesn't get pinned.
Yes. I don't know. I'm just assuming Grace has to drop that title before her contract is up. She's leaving, going to WWE. So if they weren't going to go with Ash by Elegance, then they got to build somebody up in the meantime. Maybe they have somebody that they're waiting.
I mean, maybe Giselle Shaw. Giselle Shaw would be the only woman on the roster who I think can maybe come back around to defeating her, since she's on like a road of redemption. But other than that, she really has beaten everybody. It's getting hard to think who can beat her.
And then we have the System, Moose, Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and JDC. Who's JDC? I don't think I know.
Johnny Dango Curtis.
Oh, that's Fandango. Okay, cool. Against Mike Santana, the Hardys, and Joe Hendry. And that's an 8-man tag team match. I say give it to the babyfaces here. Why not?
Yeah, let's see. You got the Hardy Boys, the guy who's the hottest thing in NXT somehow, and Mike Santana against a team that also includes Fandango. I'm going to go with the team that has the Hardy Boys and the hottest guy in NXT.
Yeah, I imagine that they would probably provide something in it for the NXT side of things that, you're not having Joe Hendry's team lose before he fights for our world championship, so...
Then again, it is the Hardys. You never know.
Well, the Hardys are gods in TNA, so...
Are they still treated as if they're like...
Of course, they would
the
still...
older
that's what, everywhere they go, they're treated like that.
They would still be treated that way in AEW if they were there, you know that, right? Just because they couldn't put on a good match doesn't mean that the fans wouldn't have lost their shit. They're the Hardys. They're legitimately one of the best tag teams of all time.
Yeah, it's time to move on, everybody. Come on. Then we have the main event. It's a 60-minute Iron Man match. Okay, I didn't read that ahead of time for the TNA World Championship. Josh Alexander is trying to beat Nick Nemeth for that. I'm assuming that Nemeth is going to retain.
I would also assume that Nemeth is going to retain. I'm probably just working myself here, but I do think we're going to see Alexander at No Mercy. So maybe he does win it here, or maybe Hendry gets involved to cost him here. Like maybe he goes to hit Nemeth with a chair and Hendry decides he wants to try to save the day, or something happens where that sets that up. I do think this should be a really fun match. Alexander's had some great hour-long matches with Mike Bailey, and I know it's 10 years too late, but I still think Nemeth is a great wrestler, so let's see what he's got.
There's only one thing I want to see for this match, and that's a timer going up for the for the Iron Man match. And that's all. I don't care who wins or anything like that. Just as long as they put that timer there, then I'll vote TNA for promotion of the year.
As you can tell, we are not going to be doing a pay-per-view point post show for those, but I mean, if anything,
if they put that timer up, we're doing a post show on this.
Moving on to, I mean, I don't think we really have a whole lot of TV talk to get into for some stuff, but we have, we talked about the Raw stuff that would have applied if, like, heading into
we covered the WWE stuff. I think we should talk about Dynamite.
Yeah, and the NXT results, that was all stuff we knew in advance anyway. They didn't do anything on that show that we talked
about it on the No Mercy.
Yeah, so nothing like, I mean, we didn't really get into like too much of, hey, that Bronson Reed spot was good, but like the Bronson Reed spot was good. Okay, that's the end of it.
Bronson Reed is they're strapping the rocket to him. And I told you, I told you the future.
Still a little late on that.
Told you.
It's got the same track record as Wago with the CM Punk is going to return to WWE imminently. It took 10 years, but
he's like, fired, I told you. He came back, and now they're strapping the rocket to him.
Yeah, they're really strapping the rocket until Seth stomps him into the ground.
for now, rocket.
So on the Dynamite side of things, we of course have Fallout from AEW All In, which give a moment to Callum to talk about anything with All In that you want to talk about, since you weren't on the post show for that.
It was a great experience. Thought the atmosphere was really, really good. I liked the seating position that I was in. Like, it was pretty close to the ring, so I kind of could slip between like just staring at the monitor to try and get a little bit of a close-up look, but then also be looking into the ring as well. So that was fun. That was a nice way to view it. The atmosphere was really good for the most part. I think that there were certain, like, I thought I was super smart by trying to take my bathroom break when the Hook and Jericho match started.
No, you weren't.
The lines were massive for as soon as that match. And so, like, oh my god, everyone picked this match to go. And it's so annoying because next would be the tag team match, and then I thought, okay, I could have gone during the tag match instead because I didn't really care that much about that one either. The Acclaimed, as expected, super over. So it's literally just an internet thing with the Acclaimed. Like, they are super over with pretty much every live crowd they're put in front of.
But to be fair, it's also an internet thing with Max Caster, so he should also stop.
Yeah. But, Casino Gauntlet was just tons of fun. I'm not saying it's better than the Royal Rumble, but I'd say the ones that I've seen more recently are better than the recent Royal Rumbles that I've seen. So I think that they've come onto a winner there. And I want to see a women's one soon, and I want to see at least like 4 or 5 of them a year. That'd be ideal. And then, and seeing Nigel McGuinness come out and him going toe to toe with Zack Sabre Jr. while the crowd chant like British wrestling. It was just like, it was awesome. And then Christian won. That was crazy, but that happened. So, Ospreay and MJF was phenomenal, and the streamers getting in the way added a little bit to it. Then Mercedes Britt was terrible. Like, I was out of my hands the entire time. And to be fair, I think the whole crowd was. I think they were both a mixture of tired because we're already quite far into the show at that point and had just seen Ospreay and MJF, and so the crowd. It was going to take a bit for the crowd to try and get into it, and they just weren't that interested in what they were seeing. So I thought that kind of killed the mood quite a lot. And then the main event was like just one of the best matches that I've seen live. Like, I just thought that the emotions going through it, and I don't often get super like invested now that I've entered this kind of the backstage world, or like just commenting on wrestling, politics, and news and events and all that stuff. So it's hard to get like emotionally invested. Like the last time I was this emotionally invested watching a match was probably Kofi Mania, which is interesting because that also involved Bryan Danielson. So I think that's but yeah, just wanting like Danielson to win that badly, and then just the way they did all the twists and turns with Swerve just make it feel like, oh my god, they actually are going to have Swerve win up until the end. It was a much better wrestling show than last year's All In. Obviously, you don't really capture the same magic of having the 80,000 people there, but it was still a decent, like, 50,000 plus there. So it was still a great atmosphere, and yeah, I'd say a much better show than last year's attempt.
I just want to say real quick, like, the Bryan Swerve match is one of the best matches I've ever seen. I was so emotionally invested, and I even thought that like Bryan's family played a wonderful role, and to see them so excited to see their dad as champion was really cool. It was just a great moment. Like, this is what I was talking about. To go back to last year, I know it's packs less of a punch now that Cody finally won, but this is what I was talking about last year with Cody and Roman. Like, sometimes just do the cool thing where the good guys win. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the way that I felt with Bryan.
Bouncing around. I just realized that I was muted when I said bouncing around. And muted when I mentioned something earlier too, but that's all right. All In, we have the fallout for that with AEW Dynamite, and start moving on to some other stories, a little bit of some stuff that was like hangover from that, like Jamie Hayter beating Harley Cameron, setting up that they're going to do the Saraya match in the future. Hangman Adam Page beats Tomohiro Ishii. We got Ricochet wrestling his first match on Dynamite against Kyle Fletcher. Really good match there. There was an all-star 8-man tag team match. Hook and the Conglomeration up against the Learning Tree and Roderick Strong. One of the big talking points, we know a lot of matches just being settled for All Out because they have to like rush that, it's coming up right around the corner. So they're like, oh, crap, yeah, this match is confirmed. And that match is confirmed. You get a match. And we're now at a time frame, and we'll break down, more specifics when we get into the predictions for this stuff. But Willow Nightingale picked a Chicago street fight for her match with Chris Statlander. Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland are going to be going into a steel cage like we had talked about. Garcia and MJF is set up. And also Jack Perry answered an open challenge for Bryan Danielson when he put out the idea that, yes, he is going to eventually retire and everything, but he's not going to retire with the title right then. So he's going to keep defending that, and was willing to go up against whoever. And Jack Perry was the first person to attack. So there are people that are complaining about it. I'm of the opinion that it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's fine. They don't have a whole lot of time to build something. Perry is an important enough name, and Danielson wasn't going to drop it. So the only thing that's kind of weird to me is that Christian isn't involved in this, but if they're going to try to Money in the Bank this and have it be like that he tries to cash in something on those lines, then maybe that's their game plan. But I know a lot of people are speculating that Ricochet is going to be added to the Pac and Ospreay match for the international title. Do you guys think that that's going to happen?
No, that'll just be the Ospreay Wrestle Dream match. Will be against Ricochet, I imagine.
I was thinking Grand Slam.
I don't think they'll do it that soon. I think they'll save it for a pay-per-view, and that'll be when Ricochet wins the international title.
So what other thoughts you guys have for Dynamite?
You didn't mention John fucking Moxley.
Yeah. The most interesting thing
God,
on the show was
how did you skip over the most important thing on the show?
Well, you know why? Because I forgot.
So John Moxley came out at the start of the show, and it was like, oh, we haven't heard this guy for months, and he came out to his New Japan theme rather than coming out to Wild thing, which immediately tells you, oh, he's going heel. And he cut a bit of a confusing promo with Shivani basically saying that this isn't your company anymore, which apparently is a line taken directly from a Australian movie that you watched years ago from the 90s that had Russell Crowe in it.
Romper Stomper?
Yeah, Romper Stomper, yeah. And
he's fighting around the world, that's what he's doing.
Yeah. And then later on he's walking around stage, and he kind of picks on a couple of stage hands in backstage from AEW, and they get beaten up by Marina Shafir.
Which finally, by the way, because back in January, this man was like, yeah, Marina Shafir wants to represent BCC in Japan. And everybody went, she's not in BCC, but okay.
Well, I don't think this is BCC.
Oh, it's not. It's absolutely not.
Yeah, this is Moxley's bringing a shoot style faction. And I imagine that we could be seeing names like Josh Barnett show up as part of this. Basically, just try and get some people from Bloodsport to appear on this stuff. And who knows, there might also be a gateway for a guy like a Bobby Lashley to come into AEW as well. So, but yeah, I think that this is going to be Moxley's departure from BCC, and I think it'll end up. I would be surprised if he's the guy that ends up beating Danielson for the title. If they decide to go with this very quickly. I mean, we don't know when. Everyone is kind of presuming that Danielson loses title at Wrestle Dream because it's in Washington State, and so it's a good opportunity for him to bow out in front of his people. But maybe they decide, oh no, he's actually going to lose the title at World's End instead. Because Danielson basically said, I will retire as soon as I lose this title, but I'm not planning on losing this title anytime soon.
See, I don't think that Moxley's going to be the one that beats Bryan Danielson, but I do think that they're going to feud before Wrestle Dream.
So I have a theory. Mox called out Darby, and there wasn't much explanation there. He was just like, I'm not a hard guy to find. I think Mox versus Darby in a no rule or relaxed rules at the very least match in Chicago. I think he gets Darby to put his title shot on the line. Darby's an idiot who doesn't care about anything but putting on a show, so he'll do it. I think Mox beats Darby. I think he loses to Danielson in New York. And then I think you come back around to Darby at Wrestle Dream, because as the Observer just reported, there's serious talk to having Darby being the one to beat Bryan, which I've been pulling for on this podcast for quite some time. So I'd prefer it to be not in 2 weeks because I want Danielson to be around for a while, but I'd like to see Darby be the one to beat him.
I can see that happening. What do you think they're going to name this new group? Got any ideas?
There haven't been any kind of trademarks that have come out recently about that, so I imagine it might be something death related because of the Death Rider stuff. But maybe Death Hold or something like that to try and push the submission aspect. But I'm sure we'll find out eventually. But at the moment, we only know 2 people that are in it, so we've got to wait until that builds up a little bit more.
And I'm happy for Marina, by the way, if this works out for her.
Marina's been doing actually good stuff in ROH recently. I've not seen her have a bad match in a while, so
yeah, I'm really happy for her. Cool, she's stuck with it and it's working out.
Still can't get that "you know me, you don't know me" promo out of my head though. It's gonna be forever. It's like the suffer and succotash thing from Roman Reigns and stuff. Nope, that's burned in my brain. John Cena spits when he says "The Rock." Marina Shafir looked impressive with her tossing the security people around, so that's good. So that's an exciting thing that's happening going forward. Not great for the Blackpool Combat Club, because I don't think that that's really going to continue all that well if it's just like Claudio and Wheeler, because Danielson hasn't been as involved. And if Mox is gone, maybe they start recruiting people. I don't know. Maybe Pac becomes an official member of the team. That could be a way to do that. They are tag team champions right now, so. Yeah, anything else to talk about with Dynamite? I don't think so, right? I think they're pretty much.
I think that covers the most of it. We'll talk more about those things that relate to All Out when we're doing the predictions for All Out. So
yeah. All right, so then let's end this with the other odd tag that we have going on here. Sad news, but it's something to call attention to and kind of do something that we've done quite a bit with. We don't do it with everybody. We do it with the big names and stuff, but Sid Eudy passed away a few days ago. Sycho Sid, Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, whatever you want to call him. Lord Humongous, I guess is one of the names that he used to go by. Former Skyscraper was a 2-time WWE champion, a 2-time WCW champion, I believe a 1-time United States champion. Did not get a chance to go into the WWE Hall of Fame after last month even talking about that's kind of now or never for me, and I really hope that with Vince gone that maybe that can happen. And I'm always really disappointed to hear that's the case with people, because it's like, we were talking about earlier, like, do the thing while you can.
Fucking do the, yeah. Like,
Vader didn't get an opportunity to have his Hall of Fame speech. Now Sid's not going to get a Hall of Fame speech and all. And I don't know why they wait when people are in bad health. And not that Sid was like up there in age. I believe he was 63, 62. So it's not like he was.
The thing is, like,
yeah, but it's like, when people have cancer and people are, whatever they're dealing with or whatever, like, I wish that WWE would just actually do it and give these people the send off that they really, kind of deserve and all. Sid is not somebody that we talk about super often on this podcast, but he comes up here and there, especially if we're doing like mock draft things or retrospectives or whatever. And the general consensus is, look, we agree, all of us would not put Sid on our top 10 in-ring worker type things. And, even though he's passed, we're not going to be facetious and act like that suddenly changed. But that at least Rob and I are fans of Sid from like a character perspective and like the aura that he had and the general idea of what he brought to the table from an era where, if you're watching it around that time, like I was, I'm a product of the new gen and tapes of the golden era and like heading into the attitude era and stuff. Sid to me was like one of my guys. Like, I loved the Sycho Sid character. I thought the music was great. I liked his promos. Sometimes I laughed at them unintentionally, like the classics that we have of the let me do this again. Oh, we're live, pal.
That's like, some of his flubs are the most iconic flubs in the history of wrestling.
He's there for that. He's there for the Shockmaster. It's not him, but he's there for it. You've got, like, his line is, right around when they call him, you can hear him laughing. You've got the classic of everyone knows that you're half the man that I am, and I have half the brain that you do. Like, Sid, he was intimidating as all hell, and then unintentionally funny. And there's, backstage stuff when it comes to like the softball thing, like entertaining character in a lot of ways, and a big name that arguably could have done a lot more in the business if some things had gone differently. Who knows if he would have been the guy to win the Royal Rumble in 1992, what that would have happened. Who knows if he would have stayed babyface?
He would have been Hogan.
Probably.
They wanted him to be Hogan. That was the plan, and he wanted to be a heel. Bless him. Sid, to me, I talked about this a little bit on the NXT podcast because it's something I've been thinking about a lot since Sid passed away. he's a guy who, since like 90 or 91, was just perpetually a main event guy. No matter where he went, he was the top heel, whether he was fighting Sting or Hogan or later on, Diesel and then Shawn and then Brett. Like, Sid is one of those guys that you just don't get in wrestling anymore, where his presence and his aura just kept him. He's competed in 2 Manias. He headlined both of them. Like, the dude's a Hall of Famer through and through, and I wish he would have gotten that recognition. But I also know that, like you're talking about, he could have done more maybe later on down the line. I think for what he did in the industry, perfect timing, perfect era. Sid was just the guy, man. And it's got me thinking a lot about what happened to people who used to just be able to get in the business for just a look and then own the business for however long they wanted and then disappear to go play softball. Like that's Sid, and that's awesome. Like, I have just a bunch of fond memories of watching tapes of his In Your House stuff with, like I said, Brett in '96 or Shawn at the Rumble. He was the first guy ever to win the WWE title on an episode of Raw. He headlines Mania 13 with Taker, and then he's kind of just done in WWE after that, and it's sad because he was just a really fun guy, and I always preferred him in WWE to WCW, but he had fun in the business, and for whatever it's worth, after he got out of it, seemed to be a really well-adjusted, despite the gimmick, guy. Like, he was just happy to be with his family, and he did his thing, and he was done. So, RIP, but I have great memories of Sid.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same affinity to Sid as you guys do because I wasn't watching during his peak in wrestling. And by the time that I started watching wrestling, he was out of action because of the absolutely horrific leg break that he suffered in was it Sin or Greed? I can't remember which one. Sin. I think it was Sin.
It's Sin. By the way, that might. Personal life choices aside, that might be the dumbest thing John Laurinaitis has ever suggested in a wrestling context.
Oh, the Sid J. Moore high
jump
risk
off
moves.
The fucking top rope.
But yeah, I think the way that I've seen him described, and I saw like a Voices of Wrestling article, which I think summed him up in the way that I've heard from, like, as the best bad wrestler ever.
Yeah, a lot of people were not happy with that headline.
No, but it's some sort, because like he's not a classically great wrestler because he had a very limited moveset. He was clumsy, that kind of, like, he's not a great wrestler, but he's one of those wrestlers that even the kind of most stringent people that value in-ring craftsmanship and ring work just said, yeah, this guy's great, and we just love watching him. And he just had an aura about him from what I've seen of like matches that I have seen, and like he could be carried to a decent enough match a lot of times, but it was just literally the character, the look, the seemingly disinterest in the fact that if he was a heel in a situation, he was just going to act babyface no matter what. Like, he would just do whatever, and just the crowd would react to him. Like, it's just happened multiple times where, oh, he's supposed to be the bad guy in the Hulk Hogan situation, but no, everyone likes him and hates Hulk Hogan. Oh, he's supposed to be the bad guy in the Shawn Michaels things, where everyone hates Shawn Michaels and they love Sid
Yeah,
Vicious
New York
instead.
was ready for a title switch that night, and they were absolutely cheering for Shawn.
And then when he came back to WCW, like, he was pushed as like a babyface. Well, he's pushed the heels immediately, and then he went like on a feud against Goldberg. But then they turned him babyface, and then he's teaming with Hulk Hogan. Seemingly everyone likes Sid Vicious and they hate Hulk Hogan again. Funnily enough, Sid was just perennially over with the crowd just because he was. I don't want to say like weird. He came off crazy. but it was like he was just you never knew what you were going to get with Sid. So that kind of unpredictability, that predictable unpredictability almost made him an icon in many people's eyes. So yeah, I think that obviously like RIP, and he leaves a very credible legacy behind him wrestling.
So one of the things that we tend to talk about when it comes to somebody that we actually know well enough. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to go back and talk about like George Hackenschmidt, it's like, well, I don't know a damn thing about him, but somebody like a Sid, we can actually talk a little bit about some of the things from his the past career. And we would normally do a full-on episode about something like this, but I mean, this week was packed with all the pay-per-view stuff, so we're going to kind of do a more condensed version of it on the hot tags here of the two retrospective wrestling with the past type things. One more match and superstar scores. Now, one more match is very simple. It's if you could tweak the timeline, you can kind of, get one last request out of this whole thing. Theoretically, you get one more match with whether it's Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, Sycho Sid, in any capacity of how you want to book him, babyface, heel, and you get to put him on, I guess technically any roster would do, but I focused mine on WWE because WCW is not around. Who are some people that would have a good match with him that you would potentially have as his opponent? I had a whole list. I put up a thing on the Wrestling News about this. I made that like the question of the day for one time. Just toss out a couple of those names that I didn't end up picking for mine. Sid versus Rey Mysterio would have been fun. David versus Goliath thing.
I can agree with that. Depending on the era of Rey, but yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
I presume that match happened.
Did it?
In
WCW?
I mean, Sid was in WCW from like 99 to
he was there for long
2001,
enough.
so
I don't know if it ever happened.
It may not have done, but like there's a chance that it would have happened. They did cross paths at least in the same promotion at one point, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just said, "Hey, he's really big and you're really small. Why don't we just have you have a match for each other?"
I'm not seeing it on anything, so I don't think it necessarily did. But like that, I mean, I could totally see him throwing Rey Mysterio around like crazy. If you want to go like character-wise, characters that would be really good to go up against, like a Sycho Sid in particular, Randy Orton. The match itself wouldn't be my choice. Same for Karrion Kross, but like, yeah, Battle of the Lunatics type of thing.
I'd like to see some promo work between Karrion Kross and Sid. Randy would be a likely shout too, because the whole match being built on Sid being tall and avoiding the RKO, and eventually Randy hitting it.
Yeah, I would assume that Randy Orton would win, and he'd be the babyface over Sid. I wrote down on this list, I was like, tell me R-Truth versus Sid wouldn't be fun. Wouldn't be my pick again, of course. There's a lot of people that I said not. There's three main people that I went with as possible options, but there was like about another 10. Like, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Sheamus, Damian Priest, Ilya Dragunov, Kevin Owens. Like, lots of people that you could pick for Sid.
Gunther would probably be
another option, yeah.
Somebody who could work well with Sid, just chopping him around and eventually hitting him with his own powerbomb, you know?
Sami Zayn was somebody that came to my mind. He was my number 3 pick.
I thought about Kevin Owens, but then I thought maybe that might be one of the ones where I would need the Sid to be the babyface.
I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, I mean, that could work. Because I had Owens down, but I just assumed Owens as babyface. But I really narrowed it down to 2 people that I would have gone with, in this imaginary scenario. My runner-up being Braun Breaker. He's kind of perpetually right now my go-to, like, you fight a legend type person. And, the Braun Breaker Goldberg thing we've talked about before, it would be somewhat similar in some ways. Of course, it's not exactly the same. Goldberg does have a different style. He does have the spear. But I could see Braun Breaker taking down Sid. But I would definitely just have to go Cody.
I thought about Cody. I think if Cody had a move more suited to like John Cena's with the AA, where you can see him like, oh my god, he lifted him up. Because Sid trying to do the crossroads for some reason, I feel like
I can't picture it either.
Yeah, but Cody is a good shout for that. And for me, I don't know, maybe it's like recency bias, but it would be a fun giant for Bronson Reed to smash,
Anybody stand out to you, Callum?
Well, on the WWE side of things, it would just be, the better wrestlers to be able to carry him to a better match. So, like your
Rollins.
Rollins do it. Like a Finn Balor or AJ Styles, that type of person would be able to carry him to the best possible match. And if you're looking at the AEW side of things, I'd say looking at Eve Ospreay or Danielson. Not just because they're the two best wrestlers, in my opinion, in the world right now, but it's like they also have the smaller guy dynamic that could go up well against a giant like Sid.
Well, if I'm doing AEW, I'm doing one of two matches. It's either Darby or it's Mox.
Those are all good names. I would be totally down to see all those. If it was more than one match, definitely would love to see Orange Cassidy against Sycho Sid.
Yeah, I would also love that.
That would be fucking great. I'm sure that they could end up having a lot of fun. And, there's a lot of people that are great in the ring. Like, even, put him against Pac, it would end up being one of the better matches and stuff. But I'd overall, I'd go Cody for the idea of, like, as simple as it could be. Sometimes simple just works for me. And Sid pops up, says, I'm going for that title. I'm, this monster, and I knew your dad. I fought him before. I fought your brother before. I beat the shit out of both of them. Power bombs the hell out of Cody, and you tell the story of the babyface coming out on top at the end. Like, maybe they do. I wrote down on this thing, like, maybe it's a no DQ match, and he does the crossroads on top of a steel chair, and that's how you beat him.
I'm going to say, in the vein of simplicity, Darby. Darby throwing himself at Sid. Sid kind of doing the big man thing where he no-sells it at first and then gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and you can do a run-in from Sting. They have their long-standing thing. I think Darby would be the most fun I could ever imagine in a modern Sid match.
Switching over just a little bit to the Superstar Scores portion of this. Again, we're not going to get like super deep into it the way that we normally would if we were going to be doing a dedicated full episode for this, the full on discussion. And if you don't know how Superstar Scores works, we've done like 30 something of these, and it's pretty simple. I don't need to give you the full breakdown, but I'll give you a really quick one as we go along here. The setup is like 10 different categories. You can get a score of, technically you could get negatives. We haven't really given negative scores to almost anybody, but we have given very low scores for certain things, of 0 to 10, 10 being the highest. And the ultimate goal is to get as close as you can to 100. Not many people have gotten super close to that. The average is somewhere around like an 81, I think, range or so, maybe like a 79. Actually, I don't have like a full on average, do I? I'm gonna have to carry that over and see what that average is. The average from like all of our totals and all that stuff, I do have on a big spreadsheet. I have like, all the information from those previous things in the past. So it looks like the average from all of us combined is a 74.8 currently. without factoring in. Actually, no, that doesn't factor in your scores for this. So we're gonna have to adjust that. But the first set of categories, athleticism and psychology, I currently gave him a 6 for both. He was never, the most athletic person that's out there, but I got a feeling I'm probably going to go down a little bit on at least 1 or 2 of those. Maybe 5s.
I give him a 3 for athleticism because, like, if 5 is the,
average,
totally in the middle, he's less than that. So I give him a 3 for athleticism. He did what he did well, but again, he also broke his leg in a very horrific way trying to jump off top rope. So I think things like that should be considered. For psychology, I give him a 6. It's very basic psychology, but he understood his role, And again, it's the kind of thing like if 5 is your base, then I think he was a little bit better than average.
Yeah, I think I might have to go in 4 and 6. What'd you give him, Cal?
I went 4 and 5 because if 10 is like your average wrestler, he's slightly below average. I think I've gone with the 4 for athleticism because even though he definitely wasn't super well coordinated and had a pretty limited moveset, like it was fine for what it needed to be, and it kind of fit the, especially WWE at the time, main event style. And psychology 5 because all you need to do is like be a big crazy man, and that's kind of what he did throughout most of his career. So it's fairly base level stuff.
I gave him a bump up when it came to the mic work stuff, charisma and character. Charisma is more just like overall aura, and mic skills and characters, their actual character, heel face dynamics and stuff. Somebody like an Undertaker is a 10 on that kind of front, whereas somebody like, say, I have a low score for Paige. I have her at 5, for instance, because her character is just girl. Paige. I gave him a 7 for charisma and a 6 for character, because character-wise, I mean, his best character was I'm a crazy guy, but he wasn't crazy in like the Bray Wyatt sense or the Kane sense or, any kind of like pure gimmick. He was just a crazy big monster guy. And I mean, I gave a higher score to somebody like an Alberto Del Rio. I gave him a 7 because he had more like his ring gear kind of went along with that, and he had the entrance to go along with that, and he had the pyro to go along with that. Sid had, and we'll talk about the entrance with that, some elements of those, but character-wise, he was really just as basic as you could get when it came to that. So I couldn't go too much higher than a 6. But charisma, I did give him a 7 because there was something about when Sid talked that I listened the way that I don't for some other people. And I gave a Goldberg a 5, for instance, and I gave somebody like a Shelton Benjamin a 6, where I like Sid better on the microphone than them. So 7 for charisma, 6 for character for me.
I actually flipped that. I gave him a 6 for charisma and a 7 for character. A 6 for charisma because a lot of his body language and his shtick was very... like, he is the stereotypical pro wrestler. I mean, like, if you think of wrestler, just generic wrestler, you think of Sid. He's just a big guy who says, who's the man? And there are other people who have done that better. And he's a little awkward, too. So I give him a 6 on charisma. 7 on character, because I think the best thing about him was his character. He really had that, like... when I think of Sid, I think of one specific shot where it's like he's standing by the video wall, and the video wall has like this zoom in on his eye, and he's just blinking, and the eye behind him is just blinking really rapidly. And his character work, I think, was best in WWE, but he really did tap into it when he needed to be the monster heel.
Yeah, I've gone 7 and 6 like Tony for Charisma. I've gone 7 because that's what I get to the Ultimate Warrior, and I think that he's an equivalent to the Ultimate Warrior in terms of when he says stuff, you don't really know what he's saying, but you kind of get into it.
Fun fact: all-time roster draft. I got Sid, I got Warrior. I put them in a match for that specific reason.
And I think that, like, Charisma, I think that he's an equivalent to the Ultimate Warrior in terms of when he says stuff, you don't really know what he's saying, but you kind of get into it.
Fun fact: all-time roster draft. I got Sid, I got Warrior. I put them in a match for that specific reason.
And sixth character, because I think that even though he did the Sycho Sid character well, that's just one character that he played, and that's probably his peak. I mean, then you're looking at Sid Justice, which wasn't much of anything. Lord Humongous, I didn't see it myself, but I don't imagine that it was a particularly exciting character. And then the Millennium Man in his final days in his final run in WCW. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of crap put in alongside the Sycho Sid stuff. So
I forget, was Sid in the Dungeon of Doom?
No. He was in WWE at the time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he would have fit in that. Physique and entrance, you know, the looks of this kind of thing. I give him a 9 for physique. I mean, dude's tall as hell. He was muscular. We were just saying, when you think of a wrestler, you think of somebody with that kind of a build and all. And height was definitely a major benefit to his career. And then entrance, I gave him an 8. I love the Sycho Sid theme. I thought that having the Sid pyro in the background was always cool. He didn't really do much in the entrance. He, you know, gave fist bumps, but that's why I didn't go like, you know, a 9.
The man had a pyro that said Sid,
Yeah.
and it went off, and it's the coolest fucking visual you could ever imagine. Sid rules.
So you gave him higher than a 9 and an 8?
Well, no. I gave him an 8 on physique and a 7 on the entrance.
A 7 on the entrance, and I'll give him an 8.
I would have given him higher, but he didn't use that enough. That's like a very brief time in his career. That's like maybe Survivor Series 96 through WrestleMania 13. If that had been like his dominant entrance for a longer period of time, absolutely would have gotten a 9.
I will say this. I cannot tell you what his theme was before that. Like, I don't know the Sid Justice theme.
Oh, yeah. The Sycho Sid theme, which is play on the Psycho theme, one of the best of all time.
What'd you give him for physique?
8. I gave him an 8. He looks great.
8 and a 7.
And,
okay.
Yeah.
I went for a 9 for physique just because he's a legit 6'9", was close to over 300 pounds. Yeah, and he was very well proportioned. The mullet obviously knocks it down a bit, but that's like
it always does.
Yeah, but I think just for this monster look, like he looked intimidating, and I think that was the best thing about him, was the way that he presented himself. And yeah, I'll go for a 7 for entrance because yeah, the Sid vicious, like the fireworks going off in the ring while it was coming out, that's spelling the Sid in the background, like that's a really cool entrance. But yeah, that's just 1-2 year period of his career, whereas all the other stuff was pretty nondescript and like a lot more generic at that point in time. I mean, the whole Sid Justice aesthetic wasn't particularly like good at that point, because he just came off as a knockoff Hulk Hogan in certain words.
The problem with the Sid Justice aesthetic was that, and this is the crazy thing about Sid, he comes in 91 to be like a referee at SummerSlam, and they give him like the red, white, and blue logo, but it's they don't stick anything big with the music. And then he decides, I don't want to be Hulk Hogan, and he's a heel by WrestleMania and then gone. So it's like, you really have to judge it based on that strong Sycho Sid period, you know?
Yeah, it's like, for somebody that is, I think, Hall of Fame worthy for sure, the stints were very like short and kind of, when you go back and you look at like, I was even looking at the clip thing the other day on TikTok where they were talking about the Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin match from WrestleMania 13, or from WrestleMania 12. Oh, wait, 13, yeah.
13.
I was like, wait a minute, no, I said that right. They were talking like, oh, Bret Hart, this like legendary wrestler, whatever like that. And I was like, wait, it was only 5 years before that he was like finally winning the world championship and stuff. And I'm like, you go back 5 years ago today? Doesn't feel like it. And
there's a lot of that.
we always like can lose track of how long certain people have been around now compared to what they were before. But Yokozuna is always one of my go-to things where like he made a strong impression for like a 3-year run. That was about it. And Sid, pop in for a few months, and you said it there with the Survivor Series to Mania. Like that was the entire Sycho Sid thing, and that's the most memorable thing. And imagine just being like, hey, the difference between January and now, and that's it for a whole run. But I don't know as much when it comes to the backstage and public relations things. That's almost always the case, but we have heard some stories here and there. I mean, the whole baseball thing or softball, like no showing things because he had softball.
I'll go first.
There's the one famous story about Sid.
There's definitely one other one for sure that stands out.
I'll go first. I give him a 4 for backstage. Like
that's what I did.
He nearly killed Arn Anderson.
Not only the no showing events, but he also stabbed Arn Anderson with a pair of scissors, and he also got beaten up by Brian Pillman in a backstage fight where Pillman's weapon of choice was a squeegee. So, there's that. So he wasn't like an angel backstage.
No.
There's also so his first run as Sid Justice ended when he failed a wellness check, and then he was supposed to, because he was after the WrestleMania 8 main event, he was supposed to be feuding with Ultimate Warrior beyond that point, going into SummerSlam. But he failed the wellness check. He went on the European tour and then came back. He had one final match with Ultimate Warrior on some sort of live event, and then rather than serve the suspension, he just decided to leave the company, and then he went to go play softball for a while. So yeah, a full sentence about right for me.
It is funny that like we've got like some other people that have like really low on the scales. I gave a low score to Del Rio, obviously. Ultimate Warrior didn't have a high score. Bob Holly had a low score, and it's like he stabbed somebody with a pair of scissors, and it's like, well, I don't want to go 3. It's like they seem like they've moved past that. Like,
but it's worth saying, like, for everything he did, even if you think about WrestleMania 8. Now it's disputed whether or not he was supposed to kick out of the leg drop, but he did fucking kick out of the leg drop. And Hogan's last full-time match ends with a guy kicking out of a leg drop and then just, random run-in DQ. Sid gets away with that, comes back 3 years later, he's immediate main event guy, wins the title the next year.
Wins the title from, like, the Golden Child.
It's weird, but, like, that was the industry at the time. Yeah, sure, he stabs him, but they got over it,
In public relations, I gave him a 5 because it's just like that. I don't remember that any kind of thing that would have gotten in the way of that, but he didn't really do anything either. So.
Yeah, I've never heard him like do anything.
Media thing
where it was like, oh, well, this has harmed the company. Believe it or not, because again, he stabbed somebody, but that didn't harm the company at the time because those things were kept close to the vest.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say considering his typical flubs on the microphone, I don't think he'd be the type of guy that you'd want to be seeing on a talk show that often. So yeah, I think a 5 is like middle of the road for him.
Yeah. Then we had popularity and credibility to run this out with the final 2 categories. I gave him a 7 and an 8. 7 on popularity, 8 on credibility. 8 on credibility for the fact that he was a 2-time WWE champion. His 2 main events for WrestleMania, his 2 WCW title wins. Like, how many people can say that they get a contract in WWE or a company like that to begin with? And then how many people are successful? How many people win a championship? How many people win a world title? And how many people win multiple world titles in more than one company? You gotta go credibility is at least a 7 on that front with almost anybody. And then you consider the guy feuded with like The Undertaker and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan, like major names too, rather than being world champion in a sense of like, yeah, you're holding the belt, but you're feuding with, Ryback or someone. And,
but like that's the beauty again of that proper era where he wasn't going to end up in a situation where it was like, okay, yeah, you're champion, but you're feuding with Duke the Dumpster Drosy, because they just weren't going to do that.
Yeah.
Like if
now,
you
if
were
they had
a
a brand split, maybe he would have been champion more often, and he might have been feuding with Bob Holly or something. But yeah, as it is, pretty credible. And popularity, I went lower because realistically, like he wasn't that popular compared to some other things. Like if I'm going to give Goldberg a 9, I can't give him an 8.
I gave him a 7 for both. I think, yeah, a 7 is the right level of popularity because people don't have Hulk Hogan level memories of him, but the people who did grow up watching him are like, yeah, that dude was a huge part of what I remember and what I enjoyed. And I gave him a 7 for credibility because, again, 2 Mania main events. However, he did lose those main events, and even though he was champion twice, they're not very long runs. He holds the WWF title the first time for 2 months, and then the second time is literally just to drop it to Taker because Shawn lost his smile. So I think a 7 is fair though, because he did still win those belts.
Yeah, so I've gone with an 8 for both of them. I think that his affinity with people just still holds true. I'd say like there's no reason that someone who was as limited as a wrestler as he would get as popular as he did, and the fact that he did is a testament to like that connection that he had with the crowd, whether it's the heel or a babyface. I think people remember him fondly, and I think that popularity kind of endured throughout his at least his like main wrestling run. So I'd say that I'd give him an 8 for that. And also for the fact that he was constantly cheered over the top babyface that they were pushing at the time, and with the Justice Hogan thing, and then over Shawn Michaels as well. So he must have been a pretty popular guy. And then credibility, I've given him the 8 because there's like 2 WWE championships, 2 WCW championships as well. And yeah, he was always positioned near the top of the card. He was almost always like in the main event. The only time he kind of wasn't was really with the bodyguard Shawn Michaels, but in which case he was like attached to the top guy. And that was only in order to help launch him up into the main event in the future anyway. So whenever Sid was around, he was never just like an undercard guy. He was always in a big deal. And yeah, and also he kicked out of the Hogan leg drop in the main event of WrestleMania. So.
Damn right he did. Sid's the man. Like he just
Who is the man?
he is the man, and
how can you say that the master and ruler of the universe is anything less than an 8 for credibility?
Exactly.
You know what? You've convinced me. I'm moving up to an 8 for credibility.
And that I believe makes Rob's score a 61.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? 62. I'm gonna move him up 8 for popularity as well.
So 62 for Rob, 63 for Callum.
Yep.
And 64 for me, which is slightly 1 point across there, which averages out to a 63, which puts him not on the higher end of what we've had going on here, when we've had mostly like, some very, very top legends, but around like the Rob Van Dam level, around Santino Marella, around Ultimate Warrior. Obviously he beats out like a Steve Blackman, beats out Ryback, beats out Shane McMahon, I believe, beats out a little bit lower than Shelton Benjamin. But nevertheless, it sounds like a 63 out of 100 sounds like a pretty awful score. But when you look at the amount of people that are, I think one person has reached 90, and that was Undertaker. But nevertheless, totally a legend that will be missed, and it's a damn shame that he's not able to go into the Hall of Fame properly. So, hopefully WWE learns their lesson, and the next time around that they have somebody waiting in the wings there, they actually pull the trigger on that. But I wish I had more free time to be able to just go back and watch some old Sid content soon. I'll try to carve out some time to watch like a couple clips here and there. Let us know your thoughts and your retrospective memories and all of Sid. What's your favorite matches? What you have for your superstar scores, or your one more match if you have the ideas in mind. And also let us know what you thought about the rest of these hot tags too, for all the things we mentioned earlier. Keep in mind that you can chat it up on the Discord server, hit up the Smark and Play stuff that we've mentioned previously to help us keep the lights on here and continue to keep doing more content. And if you do want us to do something in particular related to Sid, or you want us to do something like that Pokemon idea or whatever like that, the Poison tier is the best way to do that. Keep in mind the link tree, amangotree.com. It's where you can find links to Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and Tony Mango elsewhere related content. Go ahead and follow all those accounts. Make sure you're following Rob and Callum too.
Yep, you can follow me over at Dude Felice. You can check out me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch. I'm actively considering getting back into the video editing so I can do some of my own stuff. It's just gotta spend money to make money and gotta have the money to spend. Outside of that, check out Fightful. Bash in Berlin's this week. No Mercies this week. We're gonna have scoops. You're gonna enjoy them, and just keep clicking around and keep supporting.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14, heading over to smarkamomo.com to read the power rankings every single Saturday over on smarkamomo.com. This week it was on
Not every Saturday.
Yeah. on this week it technically came out on Wednesday, but I backdated it, so it appears that it came out on Saturday. So
that's the smart
so
thing.
no one will ever know. Wait, dirty secret. And but yeah, check that out to see how I'm ranking the WWE superstars based on their prior week's performances. That will come out before Bash of Berlin, so it'll be the ones based on prior to the results of Bash of Berlin. And then you can also head on over to the Fantasy League. So there's ramifications based on Bash of Berlin, because that's based on our predictions. Who gets the most right will be able to make more tweaks and changes to their team than the others. They'll get that slight advantage going into the next series of stuff. Although Tony has pretty much had most of the advantages and he's still last place. So
maybe Tonga, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, by the way, do we dock him points if Hikuleo shows up and he's not Talatanga?
I think we know who we're talking about. So I don't think it'll be that harsh. He's already suffered enough because of it. I don't think we need to suffer.
It's a complete missing element to this team. What's going to happen is we're going to reach a point where I'm going to need to remove somebody because we keep removing people, and I'm going to be forced to, and then that's when that motherfucker is going to pop up.
Yeah.
Hold out till October. I have a feeling he'll probably show up in Bad Blood.
But yeah,
he better do that and win 12 titles immediately.
Yeah. You can find that over at WWEFantasyLeague.com, or just navigate it through Smark Out Moment and see how our teams are doing and who's picking up points over the course of the current weeks.
And of course, keep in mind, everybody, that we have the Bash in Berlin pay-per-view coming up tomorrow afternoon. It's going to start with the pre-show at 11 Eastern. Immediately following that, we're going down the whole review side of that. Then NXT No Mercy is coming up on Sunday. And then you've got Labor Day, and I don't know if you celebrate it or not. I don't know how you celebrate it, if you do anything, but go ahead and do that. Keep in mind, we also just always have things on smarkoutmoment.com too, so stay tuned for anything that might pop up there. Go to Fanboys Anonymous for that stuff. And I guess we'll see you next time around tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon, I guess technically. I don't know. Point being, adios for now. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.